record. All right, so hi everyone, my name is Jen Vale. I'm an Associate Director with Civitas Strategies. And if you've been joining the DECAL Thriving Business Academy webinars, you're very, very familiar with Civitas Strategies at this point. So I am really very, very happy to be discussing beneficial ownership information with you because it is a really crucial topic. It's new for 2024, and that may be why so many people did register. And there is, in many ways, there's some confusion, uncertainty, anxiety since it was announced that it had to be done. What I'd like to do, we're going to break it down into clear, manageable concepts. By the end of the session, you're going to have a really solid grasp of what BOI is, and you're going to feel confident in your ability to comply with it. It's not difficult, I'll tell you that. Before we get started, we are going to set up our interpretation rooms. So what you see here is when you are here in Zoom, if you are on a PC, you're going to see a little globe. That's for interpretation. You don't do anything until, you won't see that probably until I tell you that I'm turning interpretation on. Once that globe appears, please click on the globe and then choose the language you would like to hear the presentation in. Even if you can hear me in English, if you would like to stay in the English room, you do have to choose that option. So if you happen to be on a mobile device, you are going to see it under a drop-down menu that says more, and you'll be picking the language interpretation. But again, it doesn't start until I turn the interpretation on. So we're going to let our Spanish providers take a look at this.
Buenos días y bienvenidos a todos a esta sesión de información sobre beneficiarios finales para sociedades de responsabilidad limitada y corporaciones. Mi nombre es Emily, estoy aquí para proveer servicios de interpretación y vamos en un momentico a encender la función de interpretación. Así que si desea escuchar esta presentación en español o en inglés, tiene de ambos modos que ubicarse al fondo de su ventana de Zoom, ahí haciendo clic en el globo a donde dice interpretación y escoger su idioma preferido. Si se está conectando tras móvil, va a encontrar esa selección a donde dice more o más. De ahí escoger la interpretación, pues el idioma preferido. Es importante, aunque desea escuchar en inglés, tiene de todas maneras que escoger inglés. O si quiere escuchar en español, escoge español, pero tienen que escoger uno de los dos. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. All right, everyone, I am going to turn on the interpretation, and please choose the language in which you would like to hear the presentation in. So I'm choosing English. So even if you hear me, please do click on the globe or use the drop-down more option and choose the language that you would like to hear the presentation in. Pretty cool thing. So. All right, so before we get started, I just want to read our disclaimer that the information contained here has been prepared by Civitas Strategies and is not intended to constitute legal, tax, or financial advice. The Civitas Strategies team has used reasonable efforts in providing this information and collecting this information, preparing this information, but does not guarantee its accuracy, completeness, adequacy, or currency. The publication and distribution of this information are not intended to create, and a receipt does not constitute an attorney-client or any other advisory relationship. Reproduction of this information is expressly prohibited, and only non-commercial uses of this work are permitted.
Hey, Jen, can you just double check your screen share for me, please?
Oh, really? Look, I just mentioned that.
I know, speaking of.
It's so weird. Okay. Thank you. We're good now?
Beautiful. Yes, thank you.
So weird. I checked it when you and I were talking about it. Thank you. Thank you very much, Margaret. I know I apologize, everyone. So you didn't get to see the title slide. But so, and it's my mouse again. Bear with me. Oh, for the love of goodness. Okay, now I'm going to put my mouse out of the way. Okay, thanks everybody. So starting in 2024, this is new for this year.
Excuse me, this is Ms. Franklin. I would like, where did you say the globe would appear?
Okay, so it should be in the toolbar on the bottom of your Zoom, or if you're on your phone, there'll be a little word that says more, and then the drop down, you'll choose the interpretation.
Okay.
It should be good that way. You can chat. Our tech person is available for you to chat with if you have any other. Thanks so much. So starting in 2024, small businesses, including childcare businesses that are structured as LLCs and corporations, are required to report beneficial ownership information. I just like to say right now that if you are not an LLC or a corporation, if you do not intend to become an LLC or a corporation, if you are opening a corporation or an LLC next year, this is still very relevant. But if you are a sole proprietor, you do not have to do beneficial ownership reporting. I just want to say that in case anybody happens to be on here, want to put your mind at ease, and you do not have to worry about this. But you're more than welcome to stay with us there. So beneficial ownership means that certain information has to be shared with the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. You're going to see that called FineCEN. It's a department, it's a bureau of the Department of Treasury. It's been created. What's the whole reason it exists? Well, it's been created to make it harder for companies to hide illegal transactions, so such as those resulting in money laundering or any other fraudulent activities. Just having to do this does not mean that you are being targeted for one of those activities. It means all LLCs and all corporations have to comply with this. So basically, if your business is required to report, LLCs and corporations, the FineCEN then refers to you as a reporting company. So in this presentation where you see reporting company, here on the FineCEN website, any portal, they're referring to your business. So that's what a reporting company is. Now, not, just kind of keeping in mind, you will hear that not all LLCs or corporations or organizations are required to report. We'll look at that later on. I will tell you it's very few and far between that do not have to report. There's some pretty strict rules around that there. So under BOI reporting, beneficial owners, and we're going to define that, and potentially individuals who are identified as company applicants, I'm going to define that, they have to provide basic identifying information. So we'll go over what those two terms mean so that you'll understand who that applies to there. I have to say right from the beginning, it is not a challenging task, okay? So once you determine who the beneficial owners are in your company, who the company applicants are, if that applies, the process is a short amount of time. There is no fee or cost to report BOI to FineCEN if you're doing it yourself. You may have been approached by companies offering to do it for you. You may have heard from your payroll company. You may have heard from accountants, tax, or companies that specialize in this. I can tell you the majority of childcare businesses, unless they have a lot of, have multiple businesses, have complicated structures, are not going to need to have somebody else do this. So we're going to talk about how you do it. All right. So basically BOI, right? Beneficial ownership information. It is a requirement now for LLCs and corporations, and it affects an estimated 30 million entities nationwide, right? So it's a broad impact. LLCs and corporations have to do this. So it's very, very straightforward. And what happens is you submit your information through the official FineCEN website. So that's often a question I get. How do I do this? There's a user-friendly portal. Beneficial owner is someone who has control. We'll talk about that a little more. But when you don't get nervous about what you have to provide. You would be providing your full legal name, your date of birth, your complete residential address, and a unique identifying number from a passport, state ID, local ID, tribal ID, and then an image of that identifying document. That's all you're going to have to put in there. So I understand that sharing the information might seem daunting, but the process is designed with your convenience in mind, right? It's not meant to be difficult. And our goal today is to guide you through the requirements. And I want you to ensure be confident in your ability to comply accurately and efficiently. So I'd like to just take the worry off your plate there. So, the U.S. Department of Treasury decided that BOI reporting is essential because there is a nationwide issue of fake companies, shell companies, companies created to conduct illegal activities. Those activities could be money laundering, financing of terrorism, human and drug trafficking. I want you to keep in mind that you're required to report, but it doesn't mean that the Treasury believes your business to be guilty of those activities, right? So it's just the only way for law enforcement to identify companies who do conduct illegal business there. Now, you may wonder what they do with this information. So FineSend takes the information that you report and it gets added to a database. And that database is shared with law enforcement agencies and financial institutions. And what that does is it helps those two areas, don't want to say departments, but it basically helps identify the businesses that are conducting illegal activities, right? That information that you fill out is not accessible to the public, so that database is not accessible to the public. There are some states, however, Georgia, my understanding is Georgia is not one of them, that are saying that information would be part of public record. So basically, a lot of those bills, though, if it came up in other states, a lot of them are failing. So just so you know, European countries have required owners of businesses to report this identifying information for a long time. So this is something that happens in other countries, and now the United States is embracing this here. And those other countries, it is part of public record. Here it isn't. So you don't want to worry about that. So I do just want to remember, just want to remind people, right, that sole proprietorships not required to report. Nonprofit organizations, if you're a 501c tax exempt organization, do not have to not required to report. If you are a single member LLC, you do have to do beneficial ownership information reporting. So if you have a status as an LLC, that necessitates that you have to comply with BOI reporting there. So a lot of times, people will ask me about single member LLCs and they'll think that they aren't required to report, but they are. And I'm going to show you a little flow chart that you can use to determine whether or not you need to report. So we make it very, very easy. And I do talk about the business types that are exempt from BOI reporting, but remember I said they're few and far between. So for the most part, if you're an LLC or a corporation, there's a very good chance that you are going to have to do this. All right. So what do we have to do first? We have to identify your company's beneficial owners. That's the critical first. I don't know why that's happening. I apologize. This is the critical first step in the process. All right. So you have to feel confident that you are choosing the right, that you are reporting the right people. I want to just bring up that every business has at least one beneficial owner. Now, who qualifies as a beneficial owner? A beneficial owner is someone who has substantial control of the company or owns at least 25% of the business. So you can see you could have more than one beneficial owner, and you would be reporting all beneficial owners that fall under that designation there. So an individual will be considered to have substantial control if they serve as a senior officer, CFO, CEO, COO, president of a company, if they have the ability to remove senior officers or a majority of the board of directors, that's considered to be a beneficial owner. And if they act as a key decision maker, directing the business, its finances, its structure, that's a beneficial owner. So you don't have to have one of those titles to be considered to be a beneficial owner, right? And basically all beneficial owners must report. So you certainly can have businesses that have more than one beneficial owner. There's no limit to the amount of beneficial owners who must report. You can have many within your company, right? But it is true that every company has at least one person who controls the company or falls under one of those classifications, right? If a company is not exempt from doing this, they have a beneficial owner. If the beneficial owner happens to be a minor, the information that is collected as beneficial ownership is actually their parent or their legal guardian. All right. So again, just to reiterate, all right, any individual who has those titles, right, the senior officer, CEO, CFO, president, or has at least 25% ownership in the business, you're going to be reporting their information, right? So I just like to remind everybody there. And you know, if you don't have to have a title to basically have to report beneficial ownership. So I want you to think about your businesses and who in that business falls under one of these categories, whether it's ownership, title, or makes important decisions regarding the finances or the corporate structure, all right, or really important decisions in the business. So I want you to think of those definitions. I mention it twice because we do want everybody to feel comfortable. So let's look at an example, because I think that will help you, put this into make it a little more realistic, I should say. So I want you to consider ABC Childcare. They are an LLC. They're owned by 3 individuals. Juan holds 50% of the ownership of the company, and his sisters, Maria and Estelle, each own 25% of the company. The company has employed someone named Anita as the company's president, right? So let's think about that, president. Although Anita doesn't have any ownership stake, she does make major decisions for the business. So what does that mean? In this scenario, all 4 individuals, Juan, Maria, Estelle, and Anita, are all considered to be beneficial owners. We know that Juan, Maria, and Estelle qualify due to their ownership percentages. Anita qualifies based on her title and her decision-making responsibilities, even though she does not hold any company ownership. So this really shows you here how beneficial ownership extends past individuals who have financial interest in the business. So very, very crucial for this. And we want to make sure that everybody is identifying the correct beneficial owners. So this is another example that we're going to use to clarify beneficial ownership. Excuse me. Happy Kids Childcare. It's an S corporation. So right away we know, I said LLCs are S corporations. Right away we know that they're going to have to report beneficial ownership. It is owned equally by Jill and Susan. They each hold 50% of the business. They employ Roger as their long-term manager. Roger has the authority to hire employees, but he doesn't hire executives, and he can only make purchases up to $2,500 without prior approval. I'm so sorry. So in this case, Jill and Susan are the beneficial owners. That's because of that ownership stake that they have. Roger, even though he's a manager, he does not need to report as a beneficial owner because his position doesn't meet the criteria of substantial control as required and defined in the BOI reporting requirements. All right, so the example highlights the important decision between ownership and management roles, right, in determining beneficial ownership. And it is worth noting that if Roger, I'm sorry, oh, I don't even have water. If it is worth noting that if Roger had his current management position and also owned 25% of the business, he would qualify as a beneficial owner. If Roger was a manager and made major decisions, like the example we saw before, he would be a beneficial owner. So these are two practical examples that help you understand the nuances of beneficial ownership, right? So our goal is to make sure that you can confidently identify beneficial owners in your business. So basically, we want to clear that up there. So who else in a business would need to report? So there's an individual called a company applicant. I apologize, I do not know why this is going on. All right, so there is basically don't necessarily have to have, a company applicant. So if your business was created this year and it's going to go forward, on or after January 1st of 2024, you are going to be required to submit information on company applicants in addition to beneficial owners, all right? If your company was created before January 1st, 2024, company applicant does not apply to you, all right? So we're talking about new businesses starting in 2024 going forward. So you still have to report beneficial ownership. Now, a company applicant, it's somebody who files or has the primary responsibility in filing the document that registered or created your business. So an example of a company applicant would be if the spouse of a business owner filed all the documents that created the company, that's a company applicant. If an attorney filed the documents that created a company, they're considered to be a company applicant. So we want to think about this. If they have the primary responsibility of filing a document that registered or created your business, they are considered to be a company applicant. However, if your business existed before January 1st, 2024, you do not have to be concerned about company applicants, all right? If you're thinking about starting a business going forward that is going to be an LLC or a corporation, you're going to have to identify a company applicant. Now, if you have multiple LLCs, multiple corporations, I just want to stress that each business must report individually regardless of size. And this includes if you have any small entities like an LLC for your Etsy shop or any type of similar venture. Now, to streamline the process for multiple business owners, if you have a lot of businesses, FineSend has what's called an identifier system. And when you apply for a FineSend identifier, it gives you a unique number that you can use across reports for each company. So it means that if you are the beneficial owner in each company, or the beneficial owners are the same in every company, you don't have to repeatedly enter that information. So the identifier is very easy to obtain. So you get the identifier through the FineSend website. It's quick to apply for it. You actually receive your number automatically, right? So what's beautiful is that if you have that, when you start to enter your beneficial ownership information, you have the option to apply for a FineSend identifier. So if you're thinking, hey, that applies to me, I have multiple businesses, I want to make this process easier, you'll see when you go to file for a report as a beneficial owner, it gives you the option to basically get the identifier, to get the FineSend identifier there. So the FineSend identifier is very useful if you have multiple companies or if you anticipate changes to your beneficial ownership structure. So if you are an LLC and you are considering becoming an S corporation, not filing as an S corporation on your taxes, but becoming an S corporation, I would encourage you to use the FineSend identifier option, because when your business structure changes, you are going to have to report changes to FineSend. You're going to be changing some of your information there. Now, there is a QR code here. Aaron, my coworker, is going to put anywhere you see a QR code, Aaron is putting those links in the chat. So just keep, if you are on your phone watching Zoom, these links are going to be made available to you. So please, please keep that in mind there. So you don't have to use the QR code if you're unable to, and you can just copy the link from the chat. So, you know what, the FineSend identifier doesn't apply to everybody, but if you fall under the multiple businesses or you think you're going to change your business structure, it's a good idea. You also can apply for that number at any time. So don't feel like if you pass on the opportunity now that you're not going to be able to use it in the future. So this is my handy little flow chart to determine if a childcare business has to report to FineSend. So you have to meet the, I apologize, folks. This is, I think my mouse is possessed today. I apologize. I'm not even touching it. So basically, this is going to allow you to determine if your business needs to report beneficial ownership. So if your business in general is an LLC, a corporation, if it was created under the US Secretary of State or an Indian tribe, you are most likely going to have to file BOI. There are the 23 different types of entities that are exempt. That includes the nonprofits, tax-exempt entities, and business with more than $5 million in gross receipts that has more than 20 full-time employees. Those aren't separate. It's 5 million and the 20 full-time employees. So if you have 20 full-time employees and you are an S corporation or a C corporation, that doesn't exclude you from having to report unless you have more than $5 million in gross receipts. All right, so just keep that in mind there. If you want to see that list, it is very long. I would recommend actually that you go to the FineSend website, but it is few and far between. Other than nonprofits, I haven't run into a childcare business yet that is an LLC or a corporation that hasn't had to file. All right, so this information here involves companies created under US laws. It does not apply to companies created under the laws of a foreign country. So for more information on foreign reporting companies, please visit the FineSend website there. So this is a very simple chart here. And it explains really that most LLCs and corporations will have to report. So first question, is your business any of the following? LLC, corporation, created under the Secretary of State, or an Indian tribe? If the answer is yes, you may need to report for BOI. If the answer is no, are you a sole proprietor, a nonprofit organization, or are you exempt or a tax exempt entity? Okay. If the answer is yes, you are not required to report as a BOI. So again, if you're on here and you're a sole proprietorship, you do not have to report at this time. However, going into the future, if you do decide to become an LLC, you would then be reporting in the future there. But if you're a sole proprietorship, you are not required to report. Now, if you are not a sole proprietor and you happen to fall under other circumstances there, you're going to have to define your business structure. So are you an LLC? Are you an S corporation or a C corporation? Or are you a sole proprietorship? So basically you're going to be defining what your business structure is, and that is what helps you decide whether or not determines whether or not you have to report beneficial ownership. So FineSend's rule does have 23 different types of businesses that are exempt from the reporting. A lot of different entities, okay? It includes banks, investment companies, insurance companies, tax-exempt entities. We talked about nonprofits, religious organizations. So basically, the reason that those are exempt is there is other reporting that those types of organizations and businesses have to do, and it's meant to avoid duplicating reporting. All right, so they basically are already subject to some very strict either federal or state regulation. So it's not as if they do not have to do any type of reporting. It just so happens that their reporting is handled through different means there. So, and again, if there happens to be a business, if you have a minor child who has their own LLC or corporation, and it's more common than you may think, a lot of children actually have little side businesses that they've made LLCs. So it's not that uncommon. So if a beneficial owner is a minor child, the business still has to report, but the reported information, who is the beneficial owner, that information would be the minor's parent or legal guardian, even if they don't have any financial stake in it, even if they don't have any type of title or they don't make the decisions. Their minor child makes all the decisions. Under the age of 18, the parent or guardian would still have to do that. So you see the exemptions and the special cases, right? So it's very important that we think about those to determine your reporting obligations. So, all right. Now, what about large companies? So again, there's this list of 23 different categories that we went over. There's also just a following criteria that they have to not be included, right? They have to employ more than 20 full-time employees in the United States. The employees have to work an average of 30 hours a week. They have to have a physical office in the United States, and they have to have filed income tax demonstrating more than $5 million in gross receipts, net of any returns or allowances then. So if that's the case, they would not necessarily have to file for BOI, right? And in addition to that, they also would be filing an 1120 and 1120S. That if you are filing an 1120 or an 1120S or Form 1065 and don't meet all of those other qualifications, you would still have to report beneficial ownership, right? But if you fell under all of those, then you may not have to report beneficial ownership there. So what I like to remind everybody is one of the things about beneficial ownership is if circumstances change, in this instance, if the employees dropped below that number of employees or the gross receipts fell below $5 million, then the company is going to have to comply with BOI. So this really underscores the importance of, addressing the business status, right? If you think that you don't have to register and report as a BOI, things do change, right? So even if your company is currently exempt, meets that designation there, keep in mind, as circumstances change, you may need to report. So now that we know who has to report, who's required to report, let's go over the specific information that you provide for BOI reporting, all right? So what are you going to do? You're going to report your full legal name, any trade names or DBAs, so your business name, right? Any trade names are there. This here says complete address. They are referring to your home address because as a beneficial owner, this is tied to you, all right? And basically, the jurisdiction of formation or registration, basically what that means is that if you have a TIN or an EIN, you're going to be including that. And remember, you're going to have to provide a form of identification, okay? Now, really what everybody wants to, and I apologize, all of that information, this is me going back, not reading my notes, that information, full legal name, trade names, complete address, the jurisdiction where the business was formed, and your TIN, EIN, you are going to enter that information for your company. So I apologize, I'm very, very sorry. You're going to include that for your company. Now, beneficial owners, and if you have to report a company applicant, that's where it's the full legal name, the date of birth, residential address. To report the company, it's the company address, and then a unique identifying number from your state ID, your passport, things of that nature. And then you will have to submit a copy of that documentation. Again, very easy: passport, driver's license, any type of identification document that's issued by state, local government, tribes. And you are going to have to upload a copy of that identification, right? So photographs are acceptable. A scan isn't necessary. So if you do almost everything on your phone, you can do this on your phone. You don't have to be scanning any IDs, any information. You would take a quick picture and be able to upload it. So they make it really, really easy. But all of this information, what does it do? It basically ensures accuracy. It'll allow for transparency in terms of all of the beneficial ownership information. I know it seems like a lot of information. The reporting system is very user friendly. So when I happened to do it for a company, I think it took me 7 minutes. I only had to do beneficial reporting for one company, but it had multiple owners and it took me 7 minutes. It walks you through every step of the way. There is no reason to be paying someone to report your beneficial ownership, all right? So I know it seems like a lot of information. It gets entered very, very fast. That portal is super user friendly, all right? And our goal here with Civitas and with DECAL is to help you navigate that process, feeling confident and realizing how easy it is. I know it's easy for me to say this, but you haven't seen it yet. And once you happen to see it, you will realize, hey, this is a piece of cake. Why would all these people telling me I have to pay for this? Why would I have to pay for this? All right. So to make it easy, I want you to think about these types of tips. It is designed to work very smoothly on a smartphone or a tablet, right? That gives you the flexibility about how and where and when you complete your filing. Before you start the whole process, please take the photo of your identifying information, that document, because you want to be able, when you get to that point in the filing, you want to be able to easily update that. So you don't want to get into the first part of the filing and then realize you didn't get the document and you didn't take the photograph. And what if your information, all of a sudden, if something happens with your phone and now you have to start over again, if that's possible, if that possibly happens there. Make sure you have that at hand and you've already taken the picture. The process, at the most, I'm saying 30 minutes, and that's if you have multiple beneficial owners, right? If you have all that information at hand. And remember, with beneficial owners, you are going to have their home address, right? So if you have a lot of different owners, you're going to make sure that all of that is written down before you start the process, before you go into the portal. So the amount of time does vary depending on the amount of beneficial owners. And if this is a new business, the amount of company applicants that have to be filed. So if this is a new business in 2024 and somebody else did the filing for the registration for the business, remember, you're going to need the same information for them that you have for yourself, and you are going to have an identifying piece of also an identifying document. So if it was your lawyer who registered the company, you're going to have to reach out to your lawyer and say, hey, I'm going to need a copy of your license, of your passport. Not, I need your home address. That's just what's required there. And again, right, if you think that there might be changes in the future, you have the multiple companies, right when you get to the portal, it lets you apply for that FineSend identifier number. It just makes it simpler if you have these types of things. If you're going to be making a change in the future, just makes it easy. Do that and you're prepared, you're ready to do your reporting. It's not a heck of a lot, right? But you'll want to have that information at hand. So I talk about the portal and we say, well, okay, what does it look like? Portal, right? Simple website. And I went through this myself, right? I ended up doing some beneficial reporting there. It took 7 minutes. It was more than one beneficial owner. All right. So the very first screen that you see asks you, is this an initial report, or is it a correction to a prior report, or is it an update? It's going to ask you that. Okay. And basically you choose that category, right? So there we go. Then you are going to enter all of the reporting, the company reporting information, right? So that part that I messed up, right, where you're going to put the DBA, the business address, the EIN or TIN number, you're going to put that in there. So boom, we've got the company information there. The next is if you have a company applicant, that comes before the beneficial ownership section. So that's basically part 2, and it walks you through when you advance the screens there. And if you didn't start a company in 2024 or later, and your company was started before 2024, you're not going to worry about the company applicant, and it allows you to move forward because there is a little box that you check that says that you are existing reporting company, and then you end up going to the next part of the screen there. And then when we get to part 3, that's where you enter the beneficial ownership information. And that's where you upload the picture of your ID. So when you have all of that, boom, we're good to go. If you've entered all of that, super easy. There's a CAPTCHA there. So the thing that asks you to prove that you're not a robot. So yes, you're going to be clicking on, I don't know if it just has a check mark or if it was boxes identifying where the motorcycle is. I don't remember there. And then for successful filing, you will hit submit, and then you will get a confirmation screen. Please print that out and keep a copy for your records. You're saying, Jen, I'm doing this on my phone. Well, then if that's the case, let's make sure we do a screenshot and we save it to our notes. We save it to a file on our phone. Maybe we take a screenshot and we instantly email that to ourselves, and we'll be able to print it out. All right. The process is meant to be very straightforward. It's user-friendly. And most existing businesses are going to actually end up skipping part 2 because they don't even have a company applicant, right? If you've existed before 2024, it's this easy. No reason to pay someone. All right, and there are companies making a lot of money, and people that businesses that you're maybe currently doing business with, right? Who are saying, hey, we can do that for you for $150 or $500 or whatever it is, or, oh, end of the year, $75. You don't have to pay somebody. It's very easy to do. Now, if your information changes, you will have to report that information within 30 days of the change occurring. So if there are changes or additions to beneficial owners or company applicants, right? If there are home address changes for beneficial owners or company applicants, that is something that you may not think about, right? You move and you don't think that, hey, there's a business aspect that I'm going to have to change. There's something surrounding my business. It's going to be the BOI, all right? And then if those identifying documents, if they expire, so then you would have to upload a new document, right? So in terms of updates, right, it would be great to set yourself a calendar alert or something of that nature. If you have an identifying document that is going to expire, right? You can say, oh, my license expires in November. I'm going to put a little note in here that when I get that new license within 30 days of the expiration, I'm going to make sure that I upload that document. And it's the same portal. And remember, it gives you those options, right? Are you amending something? Are you updating something? You go to the same portal there. And I say, hey, gather the documents, the identifying documents that you have, and look for which one has the longest expiration date, right? So if my passport expires in a few years, but my license expires at the end of this year, I'm going to use my passport, right? Going to go ahead and do that. But any of those changes have to be submitted within a 30-day window. So you want to be proactive about this. You want You want to be proactive about it. You want to make sure that you are, now it went that way. There we go. So I apologize. Gonna make me crazy today. So you want to make sure that you're able to identify that 30-day window, right? When something changes, you're moving, put it in your calendar that now we're going to update the address. The company applicant moves, going to have to update the address, and that allows you to remain compliant with the BOI requirements. All right. So when are you required to report? If your business existed before January 1st of this year, you have to report before January 1st of 2025. So we still have time. It's not too late, and it's so easy to do. So, you know, we still have two and a half months, or a little less than 2.5 months to report. I wouldn't put it off to the end in case you have questions, but if the business existed before this year, still have time to report. If the business was created after January 1st, 2024, but before January 1st, 2025, you have to report, or had to report, within 90 calendar days. If that 90 calendar days has passed, my recommendation is please report as soon as possible. Maybe you weren't made aware of that circumstance. Go ahead and do your beneficial ownership reporting. Once a business is opened on or after January 21st of 2025, that window is only 30 days to report. So if you have, if you're planning on opening a business, keep in mind in 2025 or after 2025, you're only going to have 30 days to report beneficial ownership. And remember, we have to end up doing the company applicant as well, right? Because if a business was opened in 2024, going forward, we also have company applicants there. So I just want to keep in mind that before January 1st of 2024, before January 1st of this year, they did not accept any reports. So you really are not late. If you have an existing business, it had to be sometime this year. You haven't missed a window. You're doing fine. If you had a new business, yes, it was supposed to be within 90 days, and you're going to make the steps needed to correct that if it has been over 90 days. I would say start now, right? Let's not wait until the end of the year and wait till January 30th, December 30th before we file. All right, be very easy there. So, as I said, right, the actual reporting, very, very straightforward. Basically, it is a secure electronic portal, right? I said very, very simple. It went live this year. We have the QR code, and Aaron has put the link in the chat. If you Google, beneficial owner reporting website or FindSend, BOI, it's going to come up. There are a couple of different types of FindSend websites for different purposes, but this is the BOI e-filing. This is where you do the reporting, right? Get all that information together before you go there. If you do not want to file electronically, you can download a form, fill it out, but you have to upload it, and it actually requires, it must be, your creation of it must be made by an Adobe PDF reader. And there are a lot of different types of software and programs that allow you to make PDFs. For this process, has to be Adobe. I can tell you that filing this is so easy. After I speak to people, I don't have anybody downloading a form. Everybody is doing this online there. So basically, there is a FindSend website. There's the portal. There's a website. You go in there. You do the managing of the portal there. And then if things change, if the rules change, FindSend is going to post updates, right? They're going to send out additional guides. So they will basically, there will be ongoing communication if something has changed there. So, our goal is to make this as simple as possible for you, and FindSend's goal was to make it as simple as possible for you. The electronic method online, super streamlined, but even the PDF option is user-friendly. So, just keeping that in mind. I put this all together earlier in the year. So if a little something has changed on the website, it's in the portal, it's entirely possible. But somebody that I know recently looked at it and said, oh no, Jen, the steps that you have are still on the money. So just know it shouldn't have changed too much. But when you go to the website, and we're going to share more links with you, when you go to the website, when you go to the portal, there are instructions. They make it very easy there. I do just want to point out for our Spanish-speaking providers that the actual language accessibility on the filing portal, it can be challenging. So here's my recommendation. You use Google Chrome as your browser. You go to navigation and you put in the website for the BOI reporting site. And then when you use Google Chrome, in the upper corner, there are 3 little dots. And if you click on those dots, you scroll down and you find an option that says translate. Many of you may already be aware of this. I would just hate for someone to not know about this there. And it gives you all the different language options. So you choose Spanish from the language option, and then all of the text on the website is in Spanish. So if you've never used that translation option, good chance that you have, but if you haven't, this is a way to see and receive everything from the website in Spanish, right? So I just want to make sure, for equity, so that everything is equitable, that you understand that you can access it. They just don't make it easy, but we are walking you through that there. So now, once you have completed that reporting on the site, you do not have to take any additional action unless you're notified by FineSend or if you have any changes. No annual updating requirement. But remember, if you have changes, you're going to need to make updates. If everything stays the same, you don't have to go and do that. You don't have to go and change there's nothing to change, and you don't have to file every year. You file once until something changes. You go back to the portal, you choose the option for either the amending or the updating, and you go ahead and you make those changes there. All right. If you printed everything out and you realize, oh, I made a mistake, you have to make the update, well, not the update, you have to make the amendment within 30 days of having entered that in the portal. So just keep in mind, if you printed out beneficial ownership and then one of the owners of the company says to you, oh, I forgot to tell you I moved. Well, or my ID expired. You're going to need to address that within 30 days. So my recommendation is when you print out or save the photo, all beneficial owners and all, if company applicants apply, should be looking at the information that you entered. All right, I apologize, we're starting to run over. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Just know that there are civil and criminal penalties for failing to report. I apologize then. If you provide false information, basically financial and criminal. So we need to do this, right? We need to be very, very, we need to be organized, and we need to do this as soon as we can, at least before the end of the year there. Now we've put these links in we ended up putting the links in the chat. So there's a frequently asked question site there. There's a compliance guide. They have so many different things. These links are in the chat, or you can use the QR code. And I have to say that the compliance guide fortunately has a very easy way to get to any type of translation that you need. So the guide is very user-friendly for translation. So Aaron is putting all of these links in the chat. Everything that you saw today, he's putting in the chat. So what I'm curious about is, do we have any questions? And I know everybody needed to put their their PDS number and their name in the chat in order to receive their certificate, right? So please, if you joined us a little later and you didn't see that in the chat, by all means, please go ahead and enter that. We're going to be on here for a couple minutes, so you still have time. And I'm just kind of looking through here just to see, and if you have any questions, by all means, please just come off mute. Anybody has anything that they would like to ask? And I am going through here. And again, we are going to have, if you are for profit, should you file? If you are an LLC or a corporation, S corporation, C corporation, you are going to have to file beneficial ownership. So just want to make that clear. That question did come up in the chat. All right, just kind of taking a look here. You Amazing Kids had a question. Oh, the for-profit. So thank you, Aaron, for doing that. Do we have any other questions? Would anybody like to come off of mute to ask questions? By all means, please do. In the meanwhile, I'm just going to advance to this slide that is about the small group studies. What are small group studies? There are these 4 sessions, an hour each, on all of these different topics that can help give you a really in-depth understanding of business fundamentals. Look, there are so many now. Financial foundations, recruiting and retaining staff, mitigating risk, sales and marketing, revenue streams and growth, assessing your business, building a strong work culture, financial planning, which is different than financial foundations, tax preparation, technology, and we are also doing a CAPS and quality rated payment / the transition planning. So if you do want to learn a little bit more about those changes, we will be offering that. And again, Aaron has put the address, the link in the chat. You also could use this QR code. I do apologize. There is a typo on here that needs to be corrected. The stipend now is $150. So if you attend all 4 sessions of each topic, one topic, you receive $150 stipend. I apologize that it says $300. That was for the previous, I must have pulled this from an older deck. So I do apologize for that. $150. I just want to make that clear. We also do one-on-one coaching. This happens to be for tax education, but any of the topics that we do, we have small study groups for. If you need more information on that topic, we do one-on-one coaching. You can use this QR code. The link will be in the chat. You can go to the DECAL Thriving Business Academy website and find everything there. So I do want to just kind of keep that in mind, that the one-on-one coaching is there, and we have the links for the all of the small study groups. I like to encourage everybody at Civitas Strategies. We do have a YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube, search Civitas Strategies, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, because we have over 600 videos, and we have that available in English and in Spanish. I don't have a slide for it, but I do like to encourage everyone to go to tomcopelandblog.com. So Civitas Strategies, we are the stewards of Tom's blog. And the wonderful thing of Tom's blog is there are over 1,500 different resources, and I encourage you to look through those. And there is a little place where you can click on what's called Ask the Experts. And so if after all of this you have questions about BOI, you can ask the experts. And once a month, we gather the questions, we record our answers, and we post them on our YouTube channel. So, and we also link them to the blog, so you can go back to the blog and see them. So lots of different ways that you can connect with us, connect with DECAL. So we definitely want to make sure that everybody understands that. And Aaron has been kind enough to put that our next webinar is the power of technology in your childcare business. That's going to be on October 9th. That's one of the evening ones. So from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, that registration is going to open tomorrow. So you will basically, the DECAL PDS site will, which is, the link is right there. It says trainings scheduled, and you'll be able to see the webinar schedule for this upcoming link there. So October 29th, we're 2 weeks away, so not too far. Do we have any questions before we log off? We are actually right at 12:30, so we have kept on topic. I do apologize for the bouncing slides. Looks like I'm going to have to buy a new mouse after work tonight, so guess I'm going shopping. So any questions? Again, if you do go to tomcopelandblog.com, you have the opportunity to use Ask the Experts if anything comes up. I feel like I can't say it enough. Please do not pay someone to do this for you. It's easy. And so many companies are taking advantage of small business owners. And again, even if it's $50, let me tell you, it's going to take you at the most, with 30 minutes at the most, probably 15. No reason to pay anything. Take that $50 and go out to dinner. Take that $50 and buy more toys for the children and take it as an allowable expense because you can, because that is an allowable business expense. Don't pay somebody for this. So I want to thank everyone for joining us today. If I don't have any questions, Aaron and I are going to jump off. And, we look forward to seeing you on the 29th. So thanks, everyone. I apologize. I really appreciate everything, and I apologize for the mouse. All right. Just going to have everybody then. You certainly can just jump off. We are going to end our presentation. So we are done. So please, by all means, feel free to take off. I'm sticking around just in case somebody puts something in the chat on there. Oh, and you're all very welcome. Thank you for thanking us for joining here. I'm glad you got something out of the information. So, very, very welcome. Pleasure. And I see some familiar names. So there are some folks there that I have either worked with in small groups or I've done one-on-one coaching with. So it's a pleasure to see all of you. Miss Van attends everything. So I love seeing her. Love seeing you, Miss Van. So, all right. Okay, I'm going to log off. So the webinar is officially over. So we hope to see you soon. Thanks so much and take care.